So, no, I would, if we had somebody doing a phenomenal job, I would be extremely happy. What I want to do is I want to see, even the last few months, I hope the country does really well, even though it would make it probably a little bit harder to win. I hope the country does really well. It's country first. I want our country to do great. If they were great leaders, I would be the first to say they're doing a fantastic job. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
There is one really...
What?
Do you regret debating President Biden so early on in the race?
Do I regret debating Biden? So it was his request. He said we should get the debates on early, and I was willing. Don't forget, I got CNN, I got Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. They're not Trump people. They wanted to have a debate where their mics are turned off when the other person's answering the question. They gave me every single thing that I couldn't approve, and I said, yeah, I'll do it. So they got the debate on their terms. They got the network that they dreamt up. But that was really his decision. I had to decide whether or not I felt I wanted to debate him. And I think they didn't want to debate, but I agreed to every single thing. It was a debate where they said, we'll give him something that it'll be impossible for him to accept, and I accepted all the terms, other than when they had us sitting down at a desk, and I said, I think that makes us look bad. I don't want to sit down. Let's stand up. And they agreed to that. Other than that, we gave them CNN, we gave them Dana, and we gave them Jake. And by the way, I have to say, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash were unbelievably straight and honest, and I give them a lot of credit for that. A lot of people were saying you couldn't have a fair debate. I think we have that with ABC. I have some people at ABC that don't like me too much. I find it to be about the worst. George Slobodopoulos. I have a lot of people at ABC that I find it to be actually the most unfair of all the networks, and they want to do it on ABC. Whatever, I don't mind. The question that you're asking, though, about whether or not the debate should have happened would have been a better question to ask of Joe Biden, because had he not done the debate, he would still be running for president and people would be hiding him, just like they're hiding her right now. You know they're hiding her no different than him, because I believe she's grossly incompetent, and I don't think that when people hear what she has to say, they're going to buy it. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Wheaties or Cheerios? Which one?
I want them too.
Which one are you picking?
What happens to all these groceries?
He loves this.
She's 100 years old. She wants my autograph. I think we should do it.
Go do it. Yeah.
Follow him if you can. Follow him.
I think it's going to be a disaster. I think it's going to be a mess.
President Trump.
With Donald Trump, you never know, so we keep the picture up. Thank you for watching us here on the Hill on News Nation. We've been listening to Donald Trump for the better portion of about an hour and a half or so. You'll notice when Donald Trump was standing up there, a press conference today, what was behind him? It was grocery items. And that is the theme today, whether it be Donald Trump and what we are expecting from Kamala Harris tomorrow. Donald Trump today talking about why he feels it is okay to attack his new opponent, Kamala Harris. Donald Trump saying he feels that he needs to define her, and really that's what the race is going forward. We heard a lot of the same from Donald Trump that we've heard over the last 8-9 years or so, as there are questions tonight about if he needs to make a change. Remember, he's now adding new folks onto his campaign, including his first ever campaign manager. We're going to get into all of this in a second here from Washington. I'm Blake Berman. Thanks for watching us here on the Hill on News Nation. Joining me tonight throughout the hour here, Mick Mulvaney, Trump's former White House chief of staff, News Nation contributor as well. Denise Gitsham, News Nation political contributor, Republican strategist. That, of course, is Scott Bolden. There is Denise. Kurt Bardella, Democratic strategist as well. Hello to you all. I'm going to get your thoughts here in a second. But first, the reason why I start with grocery prices is because it is going to be the thing, not that we just heard about tonight, but that you're going to hear about tomorrow. 82 days until the presidential election, and today, pick your side, pick your candidate. They were all out. The reminder of just how close we are to November 5th. For the first time since being pushed out of the presidential race by his own party, President Biden appearing alongside the new top leader of the ticket, celebrating lower Medicare costs. For the first time, we see this, Biden and Harris.
I have an incredible partner. The progress we've made, she's going to make one hell of a president.
Now, Donald Trump did not let them get in the only word, because this was how it all started. Again, look at what's around him there. That was trying to be the theme. Trump, just a little while ago.
She wants price controls, and if they worked, I'd go along with it too, but they don't work. They actually have the exact opposite impact and effect. And we call it the Maduro plan, like something straight out of Venezuela or the Soviet Union.
All right, we're going to break down much of what Donald Trump said here throughout the hour here on the Hill. But tonight, we are also starting to learn about Harris's first big policy unveil tomorrow. The Harris team is telling us tonight that a major focus of her economic policy rollout in North Carolina will be tackling what they describe as the first ever federal ban on corporate price gouging. Now, they contend food and grocery corporations are, quote unquote, unfairly jacking up prices on consumers. The plan would allow for the Federal Trade Commission to levy penalties. Corporate price gouging is the term you will hear over and over again. I promise you, we were going to talk about this no matter what Donald Trump said tonight. And there he was. But here it is, put another way. It's a price cap. Trying to ensure the price doesn't go too high is just that. It is a form of price control, and that's exactly what Donald Trump called it earlier today. The Harris team suggests that there will be an added emphasis on meat and the major meat processing companies. I'm going to show you the numbers here in a moment on what has actually happened with prices. We've all felt it, right? But we've got the data. We begin tonight here on the Hill with the Democratic Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy. He is one of the top Democrats in the House who represents the northwestern part of the greater Chicago area. Congressman, thanks for being with us here on the Hill. All right, I'll get to Harris in a second. Let's talk about Trump as we just listened to him for about the last 85 minutes or so. Your main takeaway is what? As he was trying to keep the focus there on grocery prices and saying your candidate is going forward with price controls.
Well, I think that the fact of the matter is that unfortunately prices have increased at the grocery stores far beyond even inflation or even their costs. Recently, it was found that prices were going up by almost 20%. Even though that costs were going up in the single digits. And that's just wrong. One CEO actually went on a conference call with analysts and said that inflation is a good thing for him because it gives them cover to jack up prices. Now, states usually have these.
Did you take any issue with what Trump just said about it?
Well, I think that the thing that Trump is really trying to avoid dealing with is how he would actually control these prices, because states routinely do this. It's just that the federal government has not taken up a similar type of law.
All right, Congressman, so here's the numbers. I told the audience here on NewsNation and those listening to us on SiriusXM, I'd show it. Here they are. So eggs, for example, 53%. Meats, 21.3%. So let's focus on that for a second, because that's what we are told the Harris team is going to focus on tomorrow. So meats, 21%. It's basically the same number as coffee, Congressman, but there are other items that are significantly higher. For example, eggs. And then let me take you through some other ones as well. Auto insurance, 55%. Gas, 35%. Electricity, up 28%. These are the numbers, Congressman, since the beginning of the Biden administration. So if you are going to put price caps, price controls, whatever you want to call it, on meat, should we do this on insurance, on Geico, on Allstate? Should you do it on the major gas companies? Should you do it on the major egg companies?
Well, I don't necessarily think it's going to be a cap. It's going to be a comparison of how much costs are going up versus prices. As I said, if costs are going up by low single digits and prices are going up by much, much higher than that, then there's some profit taking happening at the expense of the consumer because of something that's beyond their control. This often happens, by the way, in natural disasters. These types of price gouging,
I know about it. I mean,
exercises.
Yeah, no. Look, I was born and raised in Miami. I lived through Andrew. I reported in Florida for 6 years. I I know price gouging, right? When a storm is coming, every single time they tell you if that $2.50 gas goes to 10 or whatever, that's price gouging. Don't do it. They always say don't do it, right? We've always seen these examples. But when you talk about profit taking, I mean, here's Kroger. We talk about the Midwest, and that, of course, is one of the big grocery stores in your area. They made 1.43% last year. Grocery stores make 1% on average, and I just wonder if you think the federal government should possibly be levying fines against some of these companies.
Well, I think that let's see what the absolute amount of profits is as well. Remember, when you don't have a situation where prices are kind of connected to costs, as what's happening within the grocery or the food market, there are real consequences. People are unable to feed their families. People are unable to take care of their needs. Food is different than any other type of item for obvious reasons, which I don't need to tell your audience about. And that's why it strikes such a chord.
So let me ask you about another one, which is rent, right? Because President Biden had proposed a 5% cap on rent if you own more than 50 units. Here's what economists said about that. Only 2% agreed that was a good idea. 74% disagreed with that. We are also told here that Vice President Harris tomorrow is going to put out her plan on housing costs. Should she take up this idea from the Biden-Harris administration?
Well, I'm a little less comfortable with that, only because we have such a shortage of housing right now, and the inventory is so low throughout the country, and we need more housing. And so I would be concerned about doing anything that would discourage building more housing. But going back to food is a staple, something that we have to absolutely be very careful about, because food insecurity is skyrocketing throughout the country. In my own area, in my own district, which is a suburb of Chicago, a set of suburbs in Chicago, we're seeing our food pantries run out of food routinely. And this is a big problem.
Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy, again from the greater Chicago area, big week for you next week up there. We thank you for joining us here on the Hill. Thank you, sir. You got it. Mick, Scott, Denise, Kurt, once again, hello.
Hi.
Okay, I'll start with you. I'll start with you. So, look, to be clear, I had no clue that Donald Trump was going to call this price controls. But when I saw this last night, I thought to myself, that looks like price controls. It looks like price caps. And I wonder, now that Kamala Harris, now that your candidate is going to start talking with policy and positions, now the focus starts to come on her. You were groaning, so I'll start with you.
I was groaning just because I took Economics 101 in college. I have an economics degree. That stuff frightens me. That may be the most frightening interview I have seen with a member of Congress in a long time.
Come on, really?
And I've talked to Matt Gaetz. So, I mean, this is really disturbing stuff. This is Venezuela. This is Cuba. This is what the government's saying. Look, you show us your costs, and we're going to tell you how much money you can make. And even when he went to the housing part, he's like, well, we're not going to do it on housing because we need more housing. But you're going to do it on gas. If we had more gasoline, do you think the price would go down? That's absurd. That is a really disturbingly difficult conversation to watch.
Elizabeth Warren's for this. Are you with Elizabeth Warren?
Sure she is.
I think it's an easy case to make to the American people that at a time where CEOs and companies and Fortune 500 companies are getting richer, making more money, while you're paying more out of your pocket, that there's an inequity there that needs to be corrected. I also love how all of a sudden it's bad for government to tell you what to do. Republicans have no problem with the government telling you what to do with your body. They have no problem telling you what kind of health care you can get. They have no problem telling you.
Kurt, simple question. Where has it ever worked before?
Ever.
History. Ever? In the history of mankind?
In the history of mankind.
If they were to find price gouging on consultants, would you be okay with that?
I'm sorry, what was that?
If they were to try to find price gouging on consultants, would you be okay with that?
Yes.
Consultants?
Absolutely. Because they price gouge the crap out of everybody. Let's not kid ourselves.
Price gouging is against the law, as you've mentioned.
Trust me, I know it from being.
Not a single state has brought a price gouging that I know of. Price gouging over what's happened over the course of the last
You all would agree that there's a big difference between price caps and price gouging. Every state,
opposite.
Price caps, there's a difference between price caps and price gouging, right? And that it's illegal, I would believe, in 50 states to engage in price gouging, right? And so there comes with that intentionality. It comes with that there's a data or evidence that you're just raising prices without any market data, without any cost analysis, and what have you. What Harris is saying is that in order to bring inflation down, and that there is bad faith actors in the grocery markets, in the meat markets, in the meat processing markets, right? And they show intentionality with no empirical data to show why these prices are remaining high, and there are bad actors, then the FTC should go after them. That's not price cap.
Why hasn't California done it? Why hasn't Illinois done it?
Right.
Why hasn't New York done it? It's against the law.
Let me get Denise.
Let's call out the real bad faith actors in this situation. All of the lying politicians that are telling us what we want to hear before we go into an election season. This administration has done absolutely nothing to address these issues and gaslit the American people, telling us we had an awesome economy. And all of a sudden we have a problem. Wow, where were you in the last 1,300 days of your administration? And those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. If you look at just back to what Mick was saying, give me any empirical data that shows that this works. There is none.
They put price caps on insulin, and that seems to be working pretty good for seniors.
I don't know why my colleague on the Democratic side is accepting the terminology of price caps, because I don't think that's what they're saying.
It is what it is.
They're saying
capping the price.
To be clear,
if I find somebody because they're engaged in price gouging, which takes on a lot of legal elements that have to be filled, that's not price
So
cap.
there is price gouging, again, which is something is this, and you try to charge 3, 4, 5x whatever over it.
Yeah.
And then there's the belief corporate America is greedy, and if they make X, we are potentially going to fine you as a government. That's sort of the difference here and the debate. And again, for Kamala Harris, for Kamala Harris, we are going to start to hear some of her policy proposals. You may like them, you may not. But for her, it starts tomorrow. Meantime, the Secret Service, by the way, tonight has approved a new security plan to protect Donald Trump at outdoor rallies. Our colleagues at thehill.com confirm. The service will use bulletproof glass to shield him. Bulletproof glass to shield him on stage. A senior agency official tells The Hill. This follows the assassination attempt, of course, of the former president at the outdoor rally in Butler, Pennsylvania earlier this summer. The new plan comes after the Secret Service had urged the former president to pause appearing at outdoor rallies. Trump had said he wanted to continue those rallies outdoor, and tonight some changes from the Secret Service. Don't worry, we're getting to Donald Trump. I promise you. Trump's turn. Coming up on the other side of the break, how he tried to top the Biden-Harris moment today. Did what he say, is any of that going to work? Mick, I promise you, is going to give you a surprising answer. Plus, the debate over the debates. What both tickets just agreed to, seemingly. Plus, Social Security numbers, addresses, names of family members. A major hack affecting every American potentially. How in the world did that happen? And did you see what happened outside a fundraiser for Kamala Harris in New York City? Pro-Palestinian activists clashing with police. Could we see this next week at the DNC? Stay with us. You are watching The Hill on a busy day. Welcome to the race for the White House. Hello from Washington.
I think this is a different kind of a race. All we have to do is define our opponent as being a communist or a socialist or somebody that's going to destroy our country.
All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. I told you we'd get to Trump. Here we go. The former president, a little while ago in New Jersey, once again hitting his opponent, the vice president, Kamala Harris. The comments come as a new poll shows about 4 in 10 say Harris is someone who cares about people like you, while only 3 in 10 say the same for Trump. Meantime, look at the honesty numbers. They are not the bright spot for the former president. All right, Mick, this was 85 minutes or so. Your first impression of what we heard from Donald Trump was, you said to me, and it kind of surprised me a little.
My first impression was that it was a complete waste of time because it's the greatest hits. And she's now something new.
Right.
And he's doing the same old hits. And he's not going to move any needle based on that. I still think there's a problem to that. But as it was wrapping up, something else occurred to me, which is what he's really doing without raising the issue directly, maybe he did raise it, is saying, look at me. I can take these questions for 2 hours. Can she? And maybe that continues that narrative. Maybe that's the narrative they're trying to push on her. She's not capable of doing the job. She has to look president. She doesn't have to put details out tomorrow. She's not going to put details out. But she needs to look and act presidential. And doing that looks and acts presidential.
You don't think the greatest hits, quote unquote, from Donald Trump work in this race?
I think everybody who's seen everybody who cares enough has seen it and they've made up their mind. He needs to figure out a way to find the people who haven't decided yet.
Since 2016, now you've got the sliver of voters, right? Moderate Republicans, maybe conservative or moderate Democrats, that center of the country, and independent suburban women. And that's what this fight is about. And that riffing is old, it's tired, it's against Biden, and I don't think it's convincing anyone, because throughout, he can talk about the economy, but every time he attacks her, Kamala Harris, about not being smart enough, going to destroy the gun, not being competent, he is attacking every woman who has hit the glass ceiling in corporate America.
He tried to get on...
They're not voting for him.
He tried to get on prices, and then it went 80 minutes. So,
with a lot of other stuff mixed in.
and a lot of it, and a lot of stuff in between.
Yeah, I mean, look, what Mick is saying is right, and listen, it is so sad to see somebody playing an old game when everyone else has moved on to a new one, right? Like, it's almost like he hasn't found his footing and figured out that there's like literally a different.
What would you tell him? As a Republican,
listen, as a strategist, like I would say, you've got to think about the fact that you're no longer dealing with an old man that can't respond or punch back. He's still playing the Biden game, and we've moved on to something entirely new. Until he realizes that, and until the people around him stop surrounding him with MAGA lovers, people, they are talking to the wrong crowd. They need to be courting moderates and independents, and he is still talking to his base.
He's Donald Trump has brought some new people into the fold, and some older ones. For example, Corey Lewandowski, the first ever campaign manager for Donald Trump, when he was running at nothing or 1%, now is back. Tim Murtaugh, who was the campaign spokesperson in 2020, is back and making some calls today and talking to some folks. It sounds like this isn't a sense of panic, Mick, but it's more just like, hey, there's 80 days left in this thing. You throw all the resources. And we saw Kamala Harris do this as well, bringing in some of Obama world. Is that sort of where we are right now?
Yeah, I think in a campaign, especially one like this, you kind of go back to what you know and who you know. I don't think that's particularly surprising. It's, it's new, but it's old. And getting the band back together again is a time-honored tradition in politics and campaign. So that's not particularly surprising, but I do think Denise is onto something. It doesn't hurt to have some new blood in there to give you a different perspective, because if you're running the same race, and like as Mick called it, the greatest hits, but the tune has changed, you're all of a sudden out of step, and you look like you're out of step with where the country is.
Those policy those numbers on honesty and cares about you are the
Don't care about those.
You don't? Why? Real quick.
Because people don't trust politicians anyway.
You're right.
All right.
Exactly.
Yeah, but they really don't.
But they are.
The care about number.
And they don't
I care
value
about
it anymore.
the credibility number. I don't care about.
But you don't want to have those numbers.
Nobody.
I don't know that you want to have that.
What they're saying is it's baked in already.
Either
They're
way.
both bad.
By the way, we should note the debate about the debates is seemingly over, I guess you could say, says the Harris campaign at least. They say there will be 2 debates with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. We know about the agreed one on September 10th. He wants 3. The Harris campaign is saying they will most likely do 2. So that's where we are right now. It seems like we might get 2. By the way, the VPs, Vance and Walz, scheduled to debate October 1st. Starting to get a little bit better of an idea of where all that stands. Still much more ahead here on the Hill. What is RFK Jr. up to? Why he reached out to Harris's team and what he's saying now. I'll break down the numbers for you to try to explain where he stands, how he's impacting both campaigns. Plus, Hulk Hogan, Jesse Ventura. They're in the mix with all of this. We'll explain when the Hill returns.
Speaking of retreads.
Yeah, this is All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. It could be one of your biggest nightmares, certainly at the top of the list. Your identity is stolen, and it could have happened to it almost quite literally, if not really close to it, every single American in this country. A class action lawsuit reportedly revealing a hacking group stole nearly 2.9 billion with a B records, including social security numbers and other personal information. The report comes 4 months after the massive data breach from National Public Data. And now that a hacker group allegedly tried to sell the data for $3.5 million, we are learning, but they've now posted most of it for free on an online exchange. Yikes. All right, back out on the campaign trail where Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not denying reports that he tried to meet with the vice president, Kamala Harris, to discuss throwing his support behind her campaign in exchange for a spot in her potential administration. That didn't happen, as Harris's team reportedly hasn't responded at all. Now, as those reports came out, here's how RFK Jr. responded. A lengthy social media post in which he denounced the Democratic Party. He ended by saying he has no plans to endorse Harris and still thinks that he can beat her. So what about this idea of the top Democrat potentially shunning RFK Jr.? Smart or not? Let me take you through some of the numbers here and where everything stands. All right, so there's two races here, right? Or at least two races that we know of. The one that happened in July, Biden, Trump, RFK Jr., right? And here's what you should know. Donald Trump is at 44. Let's go to August. Where's Donald Trump right now? At 44. Okay, let me swing you back to the July. Here's the Democrat, Joe Biden. He was at 40. What happened now? Kamala Harris at 48. This is an Emerson College poll, by the way. So where's she gaining from? It seems like some of the support from RFK Jr. is going to her because now he's down at 4%. All right. So you're wondering, and it's been one of the questions that we've talked about for quite some time. RFK Jr. voters, at the end of the day, if they're saying now that they're going to vote for him, but don't, where could they go? Of course, this is a new race, right? Since Joe Biden's out and Kamala Harris is in. This is a poll from Pew Research right now, RFK Jr. voters. It's basically 40-40-20, right? 40% of them, 39, support him now. The same exact number for Kamala Harris. So that's part of the movement, right? Whereas only 20% is going to Donald Trump. So there's a real question here. If Kamala Harris's team is basically rebuffing RFK Jr., is it smart, right? Because the reality is this is a race in 5, 6, 7 states that could come down to not 5, 6, or 7%, but 0.5, 0.6, 0.7%. Let me show you some of the voter registration numbers just to sort of drill this point home here for a second. And I'm going to show it to you in the state of Pennsylvania. Why Pennsylvania? Because that could end up being the key state in all of this. Democratic voter registration since November 2020, so the last election until now, about 330 Democrats have left the party in that state. Republicans, it's basically net, right? So where has some of the movement gone? It's gone to the others. Not saying specifically folks who are saying, you know what, I'm not a Democrat anymore, I back RFK Jr., but the third parties, right? The other parties. Look at that number, 55,000 plus for the others, while Democrats have been leaking voter registration. So the question here is, and Bardella, I'll start with you, if she's shutting the door, right, there's a couple different things. You don't have to shut the door. You don't have to let somebody into the living room, serve them a drink, and come and say, come on in, and let them hang out all day, right? But do you shut the door on him when he knocks at the front door?
Yes, you do.
Why?
Because I don't think he gets anything at the end of the day. And again, when I look at those numbers, what I see, too, ultimately, is people who were disaffected by having a dissatisfied with the choice at the top of the ticket. We saw so many people not wanting either Biden or Trump, and we saw a lot of Democrats, I think, who changed their registration or moved their registration to other or declined to state or independent. They're going to come back home. You're going to see a massive spike in Democrat voter registration from the moment that Kamala Harris became the top of the ticket through the rest of the campaign.
Let him in. Shut him out at the front door, serve him a drink in the living room. What should she do?
He's knocked at the front door, but he's knocked at Trump's door, too. I'm not sure why he's in the race, but I don't get anything with him. He's looking for a job. Why would anybody vote for him? And I would, if I did answer the door, I'd say get out of the race. I don't care where you go, because you're not going to be a factor in this. He was a big loser when Biden backed up. Trump was also, but even RFK was a bigger loser.
Do those numbers worry you? Because in that poll, 40% of the voters who were RFK are going to her and not him, meaning Harris and not Trump. He's only getting 20.
I think it disproves what Democrats were saying along, which is that this was some collusion between the Trump and RFK campaign. But of course, everything worries me about this campaign as a Republican. And I don't know why you wouldn't welcome him in the House, give him a massage, and let him take a room in your house. Because if you want to win in the margins that we're dealing with in this election, you need everyone in order to win. And Trump was so smart to have that conversation with Trump previously. Yeah, keep the door open. Yeah, keep him in.
What did you make of those numbers? What did you make of those numbers? Because it clearly shows that she is becoming a beneficiary of the RFK voter in this new race.
We said from the very beginning, it doesn't make any difference what RFK pulls. It's who he pulls it from. That's if he's only pulling 2%, if that's all coming from one side or the other, that could be a differentiator. Now, the only issue is, of course, what state does it play in? Michigan is really, I think he's on the ballot now in Michigan and maybe in Arizona, Nevada. That's about it. So, yeah, I tend to agree with Denise. I think margins are going to be so tight, there's probably no harm to letting him in, and nobody cares who the Department of Interior Secretary is.
All right, let's go to the ring now here for a second. We're two former pro wrestlers. are in the political arena for their endorsements, you could say. The former governor of Minnesota and wrestler Jesse Ventura all in for the Harris-Walz ticket. Here's what he told Dan Abrams.
I don't want to die and not see a woman president. And I think this is the opportunity for one to get the job. I think it's highly long overdue.
On the other side, Hulk Hogan, maybe the most famous of them all, supports Donald Trump making his endorsement. You probably remember this, known at the RNC convention last month during his speech by doing what Hulk Hogan does.
He hulked up.
He hulked up. You know WWE and wrestling better than anyone I know by a wide mile.
I'm a real American.
No, he does. Yeah, no. This is Kurt's the guy. Does any of this matter?
No.
Why?
Because
these are big stars, big names.
They were big stars, and that's why it doesn't matter. These are nostalgia acts.
You want to say that to Hulk Hogan's face?
I do. I would absolutely say that to the Hulkster's face.
Okay. I don't know.
No, but tell me what's
navel, I think.
It's like they were big stars in the 70s and the 80s when Hogan and Ventura actually had a feud. But now, in this day and age, they're a nostalgia act. They're not going to move the needle one way or the other on either side, no matter who you support. It'd be one thing if it was someone who's culturally relevant, like The Rock. Dwayne The Rock Johnson, that could have more of an impact given his relevancy and social media following. Nobody is looking to Hulk Hogan or Jesse Ventura for voting advice.
Speaking of The Rock, you think he is a real presidential candidate down the line? 28,
Absolutely.
32,
In 2028, 2032, Dwayne The Rock Johnson will appear on your presidential ballot. I have no doubt about that.
As what? Yeah.
Because I say the same thing, but as what?
I believe he'll run as a Republican.
Huh. Okay.
You remember he spoke at the Republican convention. They made an appearance.
Right. And he decided this time around not to endorse anyone. Do we have live pictures right now? Show them if we do. I believe we do. Live pictures right now. You thought you got the end of Donald Trump? You did not. Donald Trump, you see obviously two well-known flags, ours and the flag of Israel. Set to make remarks here from Bedminster, New Jersey. He spoke for 85 minutes beforehand, gave a press conference, and that is not all we are now learning. Donald Trump live once again. When he speaks, what he speaks about. We will take you there live here on The Hill. Stay with us.
To bring you every story, every angle, with respect for all Americans. Live coverage starts Monday, 7/6 Central, only on NewsNation.
All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. So the city of Chicago is bracing for potentially thousands, maybe even tens of thousands, of pro-Palestinian protests at next week's Democratic National Convention. The agitators potentially expected to hit the streets, slamming the Biden administration's support of Israel and actions in Gaza as well. Now, some protesters are already crying foul after the city denied them permits to set up stages and sound systems, at rallies near the DNC. Now, it comes after a federal judge ruled in favor with the city to move their protest route a couple blocks away from the United Center. But the protesters not only causing problems in Chicago. Would you look at this over in New York City last night after a party for a Harris campaign rally? A bit of chaos, you could say. The video shows hundreds of pro-Palestinian protesters storming the event, clashing with police, even some smoke blowing into the air. The whole scene reminding some folks of the campus protests last spring. Speaking of, the president of Columbia University in that city, Manoush Shafiq, now resigning after backlash over how she handled the campus protests. Of course, she is now the third Ivy League president to step down. This happens, of course, as campus is set to resume for fall classes. Kurt, Chicago, Columbia University. How's she going to handle, Kamala Harris going to handle this?
I think that she should go out there and say this is unacceptable behavior because it is. I don't know if she
hasn't
will,
said anything like that
but
yet.
she should. When you are detonating smoke bombs in public venues, and what happened in New York was a catastrophe because it hurt a small business. They caused thousands of dollars of damage to a small business. You are not helping your cause and advancing your interests when you're taking it out on innocent people. You want to say whatever you want to say in protest, that's fine. Don't cause damage. Don't set off smoke bombs. That is ridiculous and should be condemned everywhere.
You want Kamala Harris to condemn this?
Sure, why shouldn't she? But she certainly supports peaceful protests, and she supports these protests because what they want, The Biden administration has told
So she supports it or should condemn it?
She supports peaceful protests. Okay. She should condemn the violent part of this.
Got it. Live pictures, by the way. Let's show it because we are expecting comments from Donald Trump, Bedminster, New Jersey. We think at any moment now, but as I know, and Mick can tell you better than me, you never know with Donald Trump. Remarks very soon, part of an event focused on fighting anti-Semitism. Miriam Adelson will be in attendance, will introduce Donald Trump. So today, Trump tried to get out ahead of Kamala Harris, as tomorrow she's going to be talking about grocery prices. And now, as the DNC could potentially have its own issues, and with Manoush Shafiq resigning at Columbia University, you have this event, or at least these statements, that Donald Trump is going to be speaking anytime. Mick, it seems like, and Denise, it seems like he's trying to get out in front of this. Do you want Donald Trump continually in front of the cameras right now? Because it doesn't seem like many Republicans do, time and time and time again.
Well, you know, he's the king of earned media. He's never going to turn down the opportunity, and it worked for him in the past. Again,
but is it working now?
If it's not something new, it's not going to be. More is not always more. Let's put it that way. It has to be different. It has to be something that people can't just fill in the blanks already because they've heard it for the last however many years. So it'll be interesting. On this issue, I think Donald Trump's going to win every single time. On the issue of Israel, on the issue of inflation, these are his strong points: foreign policy, economy, inflation. And it makes so much sense for him to be talking about it as long as he stays on message. Of course, that's always the wild card.
As long as he stays on message. You know a bit about this event. What do you think we're going to get from him here?
There'll be some powerful messaging come out of here. One of the messages you're going to hear is that why is it safer for a Jewish person to walk down the street in Dubai than it is in parts of New York City? That is a powerful message that I think resonates well beyond the Jewish American community. I think that resonates, by the way, with moms. Mm-hmm. Safety, security, that type of thing. What are we doing here? We're talking about policies. How many times have Republicans said the more that Trump talks about policies, the better chance he's got? I think he is the king of earned media. There's no question about it. If he stays, my guess is this is not the last time we see him give a press conference at 4 o'clock that runs till 6:02.
All right. Keep the live shot up. And can we pop up the graphic, speaking of policy, because we're starting to learn. I'm digging into my phone here right now because we're just getting some of what Kamala Harris is going to be talking about tomorrow. If you've stayed with us all hour, remember we started the show as we explained to you how she is going to go after, quote unquote, corporate price gouging as inflation and grocery prices remain a huge issue. You had Donald Trump coming out today saying, wait a minute, that's not price gouging. That's a price cap. Those are price controls. It is already one of the issues that we expect going forward. But she's also going to talk about housing. Mick, this is an area you know well. You come from a family of home builders.
Yeah.
And let me just tick through this real quick. She's going to call for 3 million new housing units to. She's going to also call for tax incentives for starter homes and a $25,000 down payment support. Your field, your specialty, not your party.
Yeah.
You support it?
When you're as old as I am, you've had a lot of different careers, and I actually got into politics talking about exactly this, the housing shortage specifically in California at the time about 20 years ago. There's actually some good stuff here. I'm sorry to look at the paper while I'm talking.
Go. Just go through.
She's got some tax incentive for building starter homes, back to Economics 101. If you want more of something, subsidize it. That's pretty good here. I can look at that, and we'll see if there's more there. She's got some proposals on cutting red tape and making certain federal lands eligible to be repurposed for new housing. That increases the supply of land. Here's the biggest difficulty she's got. It doesn't seem to recognize the fact that land use is traditionally state and local. And the NIMBY movement, the not in my backyard movement, is real.
Yep.
The reason we don't have enough housing in this country is that people who already have houses don't want more houses. I cannot tell you the number of times I've been to local zoning meetings and people say, I don't want any more people living here because the traffic gets worse. And when they don't build more houses, the people who already have one get more valuable.
New policy from Kamala Harris. Donald Trump live any moment. We'll take some of it up on the other side of the break. Leland Vittert joins us as well. Stay with us.
It's so great.
It does.
All right, welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation. Live look right there, Bedminster, New Jersey. 6:57 here on the East Coast. Last couple minutes here on the Hill. We started this show with Donald Trump wrapping up a press conference that went on for about 85 minutes. And now we are expecting him, once again in Bedminster, to speak again on the issue of anti-Semitism, a huge story across this country and in parts of this country over the course of the year with everything that we have witnessed on college campuses and beyond. You know, it strikes me As it strikes me that tomorrow we're going to get the first major policy speech for Kamala Harris, and today you've got Donald Trump going out and talking before the cameras twice, and I do not find that to be coincidental.
No, he's bracketing her. When you go on TV for almost an hour and a half, I think it was, or to start the show, and you're going to end the show, if you will, with another however long that's going to go. Like, that's not an accident. That's by design.
You want this?
Yeah. Listen, these are the issues that he's strong on. Like I said earlier, it doesn't make any sense for him to leave the cameras empty and to not take up every bit of space, because Kamala Harris has been dominating the headlines in terms of enthusiasm and all the other things that Democrats want to get out. It's his turn to take the mic.
What do you want to hear from her tomorrow as a Democrat?
I don't want any depth.
so there you go. And that's kind of where we are. I appreciate
you admitted it.
I appreciate the honest answer. No, I appreciate the honest answer.
The depth will come. Okay. I want bullet points because I've been talking to my good friend to my right here. But I want some substance in regard to how are you going to convince Americans that this plan, this economic plan, is going to not so much give me statistics and numbers, but how am I going to make the American people feel better about this economy?
Former chief right now, tee me up. What are we getting from Trump?
You're going to get some comments about protecting Jewish Americans in this country. Anti-Semitism is an issue. Look, I'll be the first to admit, my party has a problem with racism. It's in a very small part of my party on the far right-wing fringe. There's no question. But the Democrat Party has that with anti-Semitism. And to the extent he can make this an issue, and again, we're talking about policies and issues, it's a winner for him.
It's a small wing, too, though.
It is. No, it is.
He will take it too far. He will take it too far and attack Kamala Harris again and forget the fact that she's married to someone Jewish.
We'll see what happens here. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Leland Vittert, host of On Balance, takes the reins here in about 40 seconds or so. I mean, man, Leland, this is our work. This is our line. This is our field. This is why we do it. And we get Trump twice live today.
And you would know that Donald Trump loves nothing more than looking at the split screens of all of the cable networks and awaiting Donald Trump